And well, let's do it. Just do it first. Right.
What was that?
So you just go first.
Okay, I'm gonna try to be walking.
There's only one.
How do
There's
you?
only one thing left to do.
Whatever.
You may start with a couple of
Okay.
Okay, they don't pay me for this, so I'm gonna go get what, one of these, and that's all.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Which makes sense. What is that? Okay, I don't know.
crowd to the school.
Oh, okay. I don't do it from. Remember, I'm not fun. What's going on next?
You probably have to go back.
I think that's not proud they're setting up.
Oh, a poetry.
Oh, okay.
You sometimes make it up on the go.
Life? Oh, totally.
Well, then you do improv.
I can sling it like anybody.
Great.
Especially when I'm caught out doing it, but I didn't want to be caught out doing it.
There you go.
So, you said you know. So, these or.
There you go.
I do.
You go on there? So sunny. Okay,
All in
what
the trash
kind
metal
of-
guy.
That people have to take a look at that. Look at the example. Yeah. Okay. Just otherwise, they might, who knows what they will
Okay, here comes the next one.
do.
Try testing
Okay.
that. The mic.
But, so
Testing.
Okay.
Testing.
Okay, that's not it.
Testing. First thing I think is testing again.
Here we go.
Testing. Testing.
Hold it. Keep you out here.
And didn't you, or didn't Mike say that examples? Yeah, that as well. Right here. Okay.
Oh,
So, and it has the
good.
steps.
And this.
Just plug it in.
Here.
Detail.
No. Don't do anything.
I heard it click.
Okay, now test it.
Testing.
Get closer.
Testing.
Thank you.
This way, good. Welcome, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we can take this and rework. Okay. No, that's great.
You guys got a great seat in the house with a lot of things to legs. Two comfy ones. Sign up sheet is available up here if anybody wants to sign up for community night.
With the, something or other, so the pipes were probably the reason. Hi! Anyway, I'm here. Okay. Bye.
Cheryl, would you just get up there? I want to see how this, just as if you're going to.
You want to test the?
No, not the mic. I just want to test. I got this. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I can get it from there. Okay.
All right, cool. Hi.
How are you?
Good, I was just talking to Mike.
How are you doing, stranger?
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi. You wanted me to sign him up. How are you doing, sweetie? I'm looking forward to hearing you. I didn't know whether I'd be able to come. I thought I was going to have my grandson tonight. And he's really funny. We're going to poetry readings. He says, no, they're boring.
How old is he?
He's 6, going to be 7 next month. And I mean, he comes to my readings, but still, you know. He said, but then it turns out I have it tomorrow instead. His mother is having a C-section tomorrow.
Oh.
So there's a new baby coming.
Exciting.
I know, I'm pretty excited. And I thought my son had said, you know, Wednesday, and then you'll just have him, and you know, and Thursday you'll come. But that's not the deal, so I am pretty clear.
So congratulations on the new baby.
It's exciting. I'm nervous.
So is all is well?
Yeah. All is well.
And it's time that says,
Oh, to have the baby? Well, yeah, what they did is, she had a C-section when after. And they don't, these days they don't make you have another, but she's 41, and she had a really hard time the first time, and she just didn't, I can't remember the words, but, you know, dilate. She didn't dilate properly. So after about 14 hours or something, they said, okay, we're going to do a C-section. So, you know, she talked to the doctors, and they said, yeah, we'll do this. And so it's kind of funny, because it's like, okay, you know the baby's coming. You know, unless of course he knocks on the door early, but
tonight, right?
tomorrow, so 2:30 tomorrow.
Oh my God.
So,
Yeah, everything when is the baby due? Obviously he's due tomorrow.
yeah, well, he was due, I think, the 16th, but he's, you know, fully developed. It's going to be, I can't believe it, you know.
Yeah, it's like, let's have the baby before the weekend.
I know, I'm so used to my 6-year-old grandson. It's going to be so different having a baby again.
Yeah.
You
What's
know?
this one's name?
They are not telling. I think they found one. They really had trouble, but when Asher was born, they weren't telling anybody's name until he was born. I think they told my mother because she'd been diagnosed with lung cancer, and believe it or not, she's still here from stage 4 to 2018. But they were, you know, giving her certain news so that she would, you know, stay up and about. So
It worked.
yeah, it does. Yeah.
So she probably knows the name this time too.
I don't know. I mean, I asked my son yesterday, did you find a name? He said, I think so. I said, you're not going to tell me either. He said, no. I mean, I know him, you know.
Do they know if it's a boy or a girl?
It is a boy, because when you're that old, like from 35 on, they require this whole DNA testing to be done, so they can see what's going on and if there's anything to be concerned about. And so, of course, they found out it was a boy.
Oh,
Right.
And
that's great.
it's 2 boys.
Yay! You'll have fun.
You
Such
know,
fun.
I know people who've had 4.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't even imagine.
No.
I mean, I had 1, and that was, you know, but I put all my energy there. Of course, I put it all by myself, so you do it by yourself. You don't really want to add more people to the mix unless there's another adult there. So, but yeah, so I'm looking forward to hearing you. It's nice to see you again. You too. I'm gonna get some coffee, but I will. Oh, I heard your news. Oh, I know how fun. I didn't hear me. I know. I'm nervous. Yeah. Oh, it's exciting, but it's, you know, little baby.
Did the baby do any day?
Well, he was due the 16th, but they're doing a C-section. So they're doing it tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to announce my somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
So you live up in Duval?
Nyla needs to do that, yeah.
It's even worse than that, east of Duval.
East of Duval.
Like east of Eden.
Oh, she lives in Eden. Beautiful.
Up in the hills.
Beautiful. Countryside.
Right.
But she's 41.
See, I was thinking of
41. And,
James
you
Dean,
know,
east
so
of
they,
Eden, that's what I was
I
thinking.
know, I love that movie.
Me too.
anyone
Love it.
35 out, they do all these
Love the book.
DNA tests and all this stuff. So.
That's right, I read the book, but I never.
It's a
The movie was done well.
It is done well.
I never fix it.
See it sometimes if you think about it.
Yeah.
There, it's done very well.
Yeah, his book was fabulous. Of course, how could it not finish? How could it not?
How could it not be?
Okay, well then I'm not.
Yeah, it's interesting, my daughter, she is like, so.
Good choice. Yeah. Very good choice.
Yeah. And I have no idea why that was her choice, but yeah, you know, she hadn't read it, and it's wonderful.
So I'm gonna have Ashley tomorrow.
Another movie that James Dean was in that I think was, I can see again and again, is Giant.
Yeah,
Did you ever see
it's
it?
really good.
There, it's classic.
And actually, Elizabeth Taylor and
Yeah.
what, Rock Hudson?
Montgomery Cliff.
Well,
Was it him?
but the husband, Elizabeth and,
Oh, who was it?
no, it wasn't Rock Hudson. Maybe it was Rock
It
Hudson.
wasn't Rock Hudson.
No, but it's some
Yeah.
handsome man.
Oh, wait.
Who was that? You know, it's Barry.
Oh.
If it is Rock Hudson, then I don't know.
It's not Rock
It's either
Hudson.
Cary Grant, you know, which it wasn't.
It could be Rock Hudson.
It was Rock
I
Hudson.
think it was.
Yeah.
Giant was about an oil baron down in Texas. And she,
Yeah, he was a cattle baron,
oh my gosh, she's wearing my dress.
and then he became,
You're wearing my cabbie dress.
Oh my God.
I wore it yesterday.
Did you? And a
Yes.
Cassie's cabin?
Yeah, it's perfect. She's wearing my dress. Yeah, and he marries Elizabeth Taylor, who's a young woman from a southern girl from Kentucky. And she goes down to this barren Texas. It also deals with racism towards Mexicans, the haves and the have-nots. Very good. We're talking about Giant. Was it Rock Hudson? Did he play? Yeah,
yeah, kind of, yeah. But what I'm saying is that
yeah.
that combo they had there, it
Yes.
seemed like, it was Edna Ferber's novel. She was part of the, you know, that group in New York they used to always meet in the, the Algonquin room, that group, and
Yeah.
what's her name, you know,
Yes.
I can't remember any of these people's names, but you know.
I know, Dorothy Parker.
Dorothy Parker.
Yes.
There was this circle of,
Yes.
of writers
Yes,
and
they were.
thinkers and so forth.
Would you love to be a fly on the wall?
Oh, I think that would have been fun. And she
Yeah.
was, kind of had a acerbic wit, you know, very dry and oftentimes cutting.
Yep.
It was either her or Ogden Nash who said, candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker.
I've heard that.
Is that Ogden Nash or is that Dorothy Parker?
Which one?
Candy is, it would be like
Candy
your
is
poem,
dandy.
candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker.
Well, I don't think it's Ogden Nash.
I don't think so either. I think it's Dorothy Parker.
No. But I'm wondering if it's not Dorothy Parker, but could be Dorothy Parker. Could be. Oh, come on, what's her name?
Candy is dandy, liquor is quicker.
There you go. That's why God gave us these phones.
It's Ogden Nash.
It's Ogden Nash.
Really?
Yeah, see, I always gotta think, because it seems a little unlike him. More like Dorothy Parker's kind of cutting edge sort of thing. It was Ogden Nash. But I think he was the original poem starter kind of guy.
You mean you're not unique?
Well, he's unique in that he calls them poem starters and he reads them like everybody else just goes, well, I guess I didn't finish that poem. He has the audacity to get up and read them.
That's right. It's true.
You know, sometimes creative geniuses use a little audacity. Just a little. Sometimes a lot. I mean, look at Andy Warhol. I think I'll paint a tomato,
Yeah.
Campbell's tomato
Yeah, let's
thing and
paint
silk
a
screen it.
silk screen.
Silk screened it, what was it, 10,000 times?
Yeah.
But his first success was the Elvis.
Was what?
The Elvis, when he went out to LA briefly, and he did the Elvis, this thing with Elvis, silk screening Elvis.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that was his first success.
So he
out
was
in
basically
LA.
turning to pop culture, just common culture,
Well,
just
he
shining a
could
light.
actually paint. He
Yeah.
his early work was painting and drawing and painting and whatever, and then he did whatever possessed him to switch over to the pop culture and the silk screen and all that. Advertise. Well, that's Marshall McLuhan, but
Yeah.
kind of tuned into Marshall McLuhan's, the advertising.
The medium is this. Yeah. Yeah, I remember all that stuff. That's when my mind started getting stimulated.
Yep.
I'm gonna get
Yeah.
He wants me to just Good, sorry. I'll be right back.
Ooh. How'd you get your name up here, Mike?
I think it is. Did you put it up already?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, I just thought he had these special powers. He gets his name written before he even shows up. I was just reading his name. Okay. Well, let's put all the lights on here. Good evening. I am Leopold. Oh my gosh. We're going to have to be careful with this. I'll turn it down a little bit, but this is a good mic. But
Is it new?
no, it's the same old mic. I just always have to give this lesson. I don't know, you guys are all old timers about mics, but when you start talking like this here, the mic is not working so much, which would be okay in a normal circumstance. Some of you have voices like myself that carry all over the room. But so once in a while he'll start grinding coffee and people won't get to hear you. So if you come up a little ways on that and play with the mic, that'll be cool. Right? Okay,
Right.
you all got it. Well, I'm Leopoldo, and I am the host and curator, or whatever they call it, and PoetryBridge, which is 8 years old. Not bad. Not bad, huh? 8-year-old. We act like 8-year-olds sometimes, too. I can hardly wait till we're 10 years old. I always like that age, I think that was my more creative period, and everything has been a little bit south of that since, never quite captured that original thing. So, I wanted to share with you, by the way, I'm just curious because I, work on the website and I put a thing out on the PoetryBridge Association, and I apologize for being so late, but I found that really people don't pay any attention to the last moment except for the people who are actually going to be coming. They pay attention to it, put it on the calendar, but everyone else is kind of like, oh yeah, PoetryBridge. So how many of you actually are here tonight because you actually saw the notice on our Facebook page? Please raise your hand. You see, that's it, okay. How many of you were here because you got an email? That's good.
Or just because.
Well, I know some of you are here just because you've got it on your calendar and you can't help yourself, But, okay.
I thought this was Buffalo Wild Wings.
I know you did. I know you did. And I was wanting it to be that way because I knew that's how we get you here, In fact, I'm going to focus more on the Buffalo Wing thing, from now on, just for the publicity thing. Anyway, I just, my wife and I were down visiting people in Albuquerque. Anybody been to Albuquerque? One person, okay. Well, you've been to Albuquerque, you're my wife. But we also went to Santa Fe. And I was an unwilling traveler. I was just going along to make my wife happy. And I knew there'd be, I'm not into traveling so much anymore. I kind of like where I am all the time. And it's a lot of, planes and hotel rooms, and it's just all that kind of stuff. The bed never is quite good enough for me. I'm getting older and I'm just fussy about my comfort. But anyway, we went down there, but we went to the Pueblo Museum, and then eventually out of Santa Fe, we went up a little north near Santa Clara, the Pueblo of Santa Clara. There are 19 pueblos, all named by the Spanish in the 1600s, came in and conquered the tribes that were there, and then they were unconquered sometime later, but then they came back and finished up the job, and then eventually turned it over to Mexico. It's a long, convoluted history. But there were 16, people were living in these cliffs and on top of the mesa for 1,600 years. And anyway, I just came back terribly impressed. But the one thing I wanted to share with you, because it's got me all excited, is that when I went to the museum where the Pueblo Indians, the 19 tribes, they're all, by the way, individual tribes with treaties with the United States. They're sovereign nations, which I didn't know until I got there, and some of you may know all this. But I hate museums. I mean, I like them for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then I just get overly stimulated and I want to go outside. But this one was actually quite interesting, and this kind of struck me because PoetryBridge has been about poetry and storytelling. And that's how it started. I was the first person to read because we had to get it started, and I read a bunch of poetry for 45 minutes. And I think Carrie Cox says, I couldn't believe I was going to sit here for 45 minutes and listen to you read your poetry, but she actually liked it. She said she wanted more. This was only encouraging. And then Walter Matt, who was a barista here, and he and I had sort of teamed up, he told these wonderful stories the second time we met. And they were just stories from his life. He didn't read them, he just told them, So we've had storytellers, but most of us read the story. We have it written out. There's been a few exceptions to that. So I was reading this thing, and for the Pueblo Indians, this was a statement in the museum. I just want to share it with you, tell you how it stimulated my thinking. We are an oral culture. Traditions, languages, stories, and knowledge are passed down from generation to generation through the spoken word. The stories we share with our children, grandchildren, and others are lessons to guide beliefs and action. These stories tell us where we come from and how we must treat all living things, and they provide entertainment even as they teach. All stories are a guide to proper belief and action. When we share our stories, the teller and hearer are connected to one another, and our culture is preserved. So I haven't quite sorted out what that means, but summertime is a good time for, I found out, where as soon as the sun comes out, the poets go outside or something, or the poet, fan. I mean, there seems to be more of a turnout when it's cold and wet and rainy, and you want to come in and it's dark and listen to stories and poetry. So this summer I want to experiment with that kind of storytelling. I don't know if it's within us or not, because I don't even know if we have a culture, in the way that the Pueblo Indians did. I mean, they had a culture that had been passed on for survival purposes, so you could survive and learn how to eat and so on. But so these stories were a very important part. But if any of you, the reason I shared this with you, any of you are interested in helping me think this through, what that might look like for us at this time, at this place, maybe we could do something at one of the readings in the summer and kind of experiment with it. Please come up and let me know. So first of all, I want to thank George, who came out just in time. Thank you, George.
Open up some windows.
I always say that George is my favorite barista. here. I always say that when he's here, but if somebody else and I kind of shift, because they're all really good. And it's always a shout out and a thank you to Cameron and Pete of CMP, because they've provided this amazing venue for activity, community activity and action. And as you probably know, this place was up for sale for 1.2 million. Do you all know this? 1.2 million. Somehow the money got raised, small contributions and apparently large. And now it is CMP for coffee forever. And so this is my thing, you know, PoetryBridge forever as well. Because as long as CMP is here, I hope that we can maintain this. Tonight, we'll have Community Mic after the break, but we have 2 featured readers. And, you know, one thing I want to say about Chris Jarmick, who's one of our featured readers, is there are people who write poetry, and some people who write poetry actually read it to their friends. And then some of them come and read in public places, and some go so far as to submit it, and it gets published, and they have books and so on and so forth. But there's also another smaller group of people who create venues for that to happen. And Chris, you're one of those people, and I know you've given me some kudos for the efforts I've made, but I just want to acknowledge that tonight we're going to hear you as a poet, but also you are a person who contributes that, both with the bookstore and so forth. By the way, have you decided the 2 of you which one is going to go first? Okay. Oh, I see. You want to talk about that? I'm just kidding. Anyway, so Christopher, one thing I've asked people who've read here before, and you've read a number of times, and you're both a familiar voice, but sometimes you bring new material and all that. Hoping you do tonight as well.
Always.
Yeah, that's always good. Yeah, when people are reading stuff, you know, that they read 20 years ago, I mean, it's okay, but did you do something recently? I always kind of want to see that, you know. But anyway, I've asked people who've come to recommend somebody else that they're enthusiastic about, that's my criteria, and that they would like to introduce them to the PoetryBridge community. And tonight that person is Mary Eliza Crane. And she's a Pacific Northwest poet. This is the kind of information I always ask for, like, what do you want people to know about you? She's lived in the Cascade foothills for the past 3 decades. I just found out some area known as east of Duval. I just like that. Duval. Okay, I know how to say Yakima, and I know how to say Wapato, but apparently I do not know how to say Duval. But I now know how to say it. A regular feature at poetry venues throughout the Puget Sound region, she has read poetry from Woodstock to LA. You didn't read it, the original Woodstock.
No, not that one. I've read poetry in Woodstock.
That's good, that's good. Kind of like a pilgrimage or something, you know. Not really. Okay, Mary has 2 volumes of poetry, What I Can Hold in My Hands and At First Light, both published by Gazubi Tales Publishing. Her work has also appeared in poetry journals, including, and there's a bunch of them, Raven Chronicles, The Cartier Street Review, Tuesday Poems, Pudding Magazine, Quill and Parchment, Farfield, Avocat, and several anthologies. And most recently, Washington's 129 Poets of Washington, selected by former state poet laureate Todd Marshall. By the way, this hat here, it says PoetryBridge at CMP, and then it says home of the best poetry and storytelling in West Seattle. Best meaning brave, expressive, perhaps enthusiastic, sincere, and truthful, which is the kind of poetry I like best. Anyway, this hat is available to the first person who can tell me who this year's, and coming year's, Washington State Poet Laureate is.
Claudia.
Well, I don't know which one said it first. There are 3 of you. Raise your hands, and I'm sure you all knew it.
Say it out loud.
Now, who wants his hat of the 3 of you? A lot of people say, oh, I'm never going to wear this hat. You wouldn't need that. Do you know somebody who would wear the hat?
Yes.
I paid $18 for it to promote it. Nobody wants to buy it, so I'm now giving it away in these cheap quizzes, you know, that everybody should know the answer. My God. Would you wear it?
I'll tell you.
Would you wear it?
I would wear it.
Okay. Sorry, Cheryl. Sorry. Anyway, let's give a warm hand to Mary.
the mic?
Yeah, that's good.
That's good with the mic. Okay. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, Chris. And I'll get right to it. The unshaven face of God. Has he grown weary of us? His creation that wouldn't stay in the circle, invented the line, and refused to color inside. He broods. Had he been too harsh, expelling us out of the garden, and in spite, condemned us to fend for ourselves? And why, oh why, had he blamed it on her in his anger? He handed the sons of Adam the belief all of his daughters were cursed. No, he remembered her lovely, their couplings and innocent bliss. Now he doesn't want to climb out from under his feathered duvet to face the detritus of his brilliant sapphire gem. Embittered, he shared the flowers and bees, nectar and honey, clear-flowing rivers, lotus and tiger, and mornings bejeweled by the dew. He gave us the night for a view of his stars, the moon for the rhythm of tides, sleep but not dreams, and spared us the terror beneath. Now the dark lasts too long, and his dawn is flooded with grief. Well, he tried to drown us. First he gusted in cold, blinded with snow, iced us with menacing glaciers of blue. We killed his animals and kept ourselves warm in their skins, ate the meat, painted their bodies in motion on the walls of our caves, and claimed them, as if creation were ours. So he sent torrents of rain. We chopped down some trees, hammered a boat, gathered up what we could, and started to float. Undeterred by his ringing concerns, we constructed our kingdom again, until we captured the might of the sun, the spark of the atom careening through space, punch-drunk on destruction and faceless with shame. Cacophony, and this one starts with an epigraph from Deborah Palmieri. We are always ashamed after the fact of these hysterias. This one will be no different. A bench of rough-hewn logs overlooks a shallow pond, ringed by reeds, cattails, spirea, and moss. A flock of geese squawk, flap, scutter, and scatter chaos through a cold, cacophonic afternoon. Were there an interlude of quiet, I would hear dulcet tones from the smallest of passerines, a bassoon of upstart frogs asserting their own space on a moldy, wood-rotted stage, the mother drum of woodpecker excavating dinner and a nest in a domesticated alder hollow, all anyone ever needs. I long for the glide of one humble bird, perhaps a white-feathered goldeneye, to trace a fine line on peaceful water. Now we're going to do some traveling. Under the Integer, Museum, Akademgorodak, Siberia, Russia. I sit beside a rose-print tablecloth, strewn with bowls of chocolates, drink tea from a silver tea glass holder, fashioned in imperial times, strong and black with sugar. My friends across the table sip from Soviet-crafted relics as we nibble on some sweets. Anastasia puts lace gloves on her slender hands, tells the tale of their long road from aristocracy, then opens a crude wooden suitcase nailed together in the gulags. We're surrounded by old dolls and army uniforms, shelves of radios, stacks of tableware, and black and white faded photographs, an outmoded rotary phone from the Kremlin. Anastasia collects them all. Her 60s childhood was spent among the light-filled birches of Siberia in a bright young city built for research, science, and mathematics, secluded in the woods. Her mother was one of 47 scientists who signed the letter with Andrei Sakharov declaring intellectual emancipation from the state. She never worked again. There are now enough vegetables, shoes, and toothbrushes, and an entire generation has come of age with unimpeded travel, the internet, and no memory of the Cold War or the socialist workers' paradise. No memory of a time when young women and men sang and danced and brewed a ferment of dangerous ideas, then paid the price, much like their peers throughout the world. No memory of when time ran slowly and everyone was equal, but no one had enough. When kitchen doors were open and warm with conversation, tea was always ready, dark and sweet, and roses adorned tablecloths. International diplomacy. We could share the same bowl of soup with separate silver spoons. One hand to slake the hunger, the other to stanch the greed. A pinch of salt within the wounds, peppers up the needs. We'd offer fire-breathing chili to their borscht with tender beets, misconstrue the meaning of mushroom soup with sour cream. We'd invite them to our table set with thin and meager gruel, expect them to depart and bang a spoon, if not a shoe. In the end, we both will starve. Dawn at the Bay of Pigs, Playa Calaton, Cuba. Dawn at La Bahia de los Cochinos, the silhouette of a two-man skiff rises in a band of light, glides beyond the horizon. Roosters crow in every corner. Small dogs chase Juanaba Real, yellow-crowned night heron waiting in the quiet bay. Feet sink into coarse sand, bathed by warm salt, in a rhythm of gentle waves. In an hour, horse-drawn carts laden with cabbage and papaya will clatter through the streets toward the open-air market. Small girls in red skirts, eyes shining, brown faces smiling, will chatter their way to school. Be careful, Norte-Americano, Cotoro o Perico. There are Cuban parrots in the lost and found. This next one is a persona poem. It's called Neighbors. I try to do good. I believed in the truth and right and wrong, and if I broke the rules, it would land on my permanent record. How come you broke all the rules and don't believe in God and He doesn't smite you dead? What happened to your permanent record? Don't think I don't covet your wife strutting in her tight little jeans just because I'm your neighbor, though if God didn't give a commandment against it, I might not have ever thought it. How come I'm the one who's damned? I put on a tie on Sundays, do what my boss says all week long. My wife does what I say because that's how it's supposed to be. You wear an old socialist t-shirt and expect me to believe you go to work without leaving your custom-built home? What is a consultant anyway? I mow my lawn every Saturday while my wife tends to the flowers, and we look good before God and all the neighbors. Your wife mows your shaggy lawn, all sweaty, and takes off her bra. My wife never takes off her bra. She wanted to be neighborly and have you over for barbecue. I wasn't sure it was such a good idea. She was nervous, wanting to impress your wife because she writes poetry. Who cares, I said. Jolene, she's not better than you. But your wife wouldn't eat the steak and turned up her nose to the yellow jello because there's chemicals in the colors. Poor Jolene cried all night. Dublin. At first light, gulls screech across the dun grey sky, aloft from the Irish Sea. Outside my Dublin window, rooftops and catwalks spread off stately Georgian homes built by conquerors. My room is 6 foot wide, a grandeur of colonial moldings and modern city grit. The tea is hot and strong, the cream is butter-sweet, and outside every window, the streets have run with blood. But for what? Women sit in doorways with outstretched paper cups, begging for some money. The papers read of government corruption and unmet human needs. But the doors are open in a hungry, grief-filled world, and the words fall quickly from their bright-eyed, nimble tongues as they welcome every stranger in and everybody home. Potato eyes. We had another mouth to feed, yet comes springtime, a box full of potatoes' sprouted eyes, stretched out into shoots aimed for the light, left over for the new season's seed. It was a winter thick with orange pumpkin rolled out into pies, a freezer full of cider, berries, pesto, squash, and sauce, bags of oats and parsnip stew, kale leeks and beets, keeping cool in the rain-pounded ground. Sometimes the eggs were warm from hens straight to the pan, and if this hadn't been enough, there was a paycheck twice a month and a grocery store in town. The potato sprouts were nameless, purple, yellow, red, and white, fingerling to softball size, but none were Irish lumpers. Before 1845, 4 of 10 rural Irish ate no solid food except potatoes, sat together round a basket, peeled the jackets with their nails and dipped in salt, washed them down with buttermilk, milk and potatoes, mashed potatoes, simple fare on small stony farms for the strongest peasants in Europe. Spores born on the wind and rain, phytophthora water mold, alighted on green leaves and washed down through the soil. Digging tubers black and foul, how the hungry Celtic farmers howled. Some built roads to nowhere, made half a shilling for some meal. Others to the workhouse where they dressed in penal garb and pointed shoes. Cottages were tumbled, families turned out on the road, drifted round the land in search of food. Desperately they died. They died in ditches, fields, and hovels, with swollen limbs and bellies, from famine fever, typhus, in towns with names like Skibbereen and Skull. Many left on coffin ships, dead before arrived, but some stayed on, and somehow some survived. I don't know how those who survived in Kerry, on the remote southwestern shore. I know Johanna, Patrick, Jeremiah, but they came later. I don't know those who stood before and lived through famine. Did they scale down rocky cliffs for seabird eggs, scavenge kelp and whelk in tattered rags, bury emaciated babies by the score? The only thing I know about those ravaged souls in a land of poets, peasants, rebels, thieves, behind the hunger in their eyes and their lost stories is the same undaunted blue as is in mine. Gap of Dunlow, Killarney, County Kerry, Ireland. You would have loved it, darling, water roiling through the Gap of Dunlow, curtains plunged down ancient rocks, sheets of rain slapping in the mist. Bent sideways to the wind, a maelstrom whipped a lash and sting against our cheeks. Yet, the burning red of mountain ash and hawthorn, flash of fuchsia and montbretia, pierced the green and gray, the sheep serene. Exhilarated, our faces open toward the unrelenting storm. Drenched through our skins, soaked to the bone, ravenous for tea and scone. Hazel Catkin. I greeted the first spring-like day with exhaustion. No appreciation for a small portion of sun in gray mosaic and a stiff wind. I was tired. The retreating season offered no space for my small needs, as the world iced over in suspicion and decent people passed away. I once fell in love over a hazel catkin, heads drawn together, breath quickened. We gazed into its bright red styles instead of one another's animated faces. I don't need to recreate the love, but the fall, the descent into desire while the buds swell up, the body warms and a blush reawakens into life. Living alone. I become quickly accustomed to living alone. Small, simple meals, hummus and figs, spinach and eggs, rice, a few slices of cheese. I no longer track the comings and goings of not yet adults, piles of shoes, plates on the counter, sudden changes of mood. There is never a full load of laundry. The well does not run dry. Baths are long and luxurious, hot and scented, patchouli or cedar in salt. I lock the door at night now, like a woman who lives alone in the woods, at peace with the wolves, but not so sure of the hunters. I slip into cool sheets and drift into twilight sleep. My lovers are old men, face cradled in soft chests of gray, bristling hair, a mirror of uncluttered want, communion of pure need. And look, I have a poem by Christopher J. Jarmick. It's called Mostly. Now that I'm nearly grown up, sometimes the acid rain from years ago burns my eyes, reminding me of how far we've traveled, first together, then apart, forever connected, and I won't insist it is more bitter than sweet. There was and remains too much good through all of it. I should have been taller. I could have been someone else. If it was nearly perfect, it would not have been real. If it were easy, I would not have learned a thing. I'm glad I am here today. Mostly. And one last one. It's called Ring of Fire. At the wane of a long season of heat-filled yellow sky, fire consumes mountain forests decimated and infested by bark beetles feasting in their own changing world. I swim deliciously in a warmer river without current, cringing at banks so barren I could walk across. The water is too hot for salmon to return upstream and spawn. Earth degrades to dirt, crumbles in my hand. Early spring bloomed in a riot of fragrant hawthorn flower, unfamiliar nesting songbirds, rare sun, and blueberries found and eaten before breakfast, while deer were still bedded down with stumbling fawns. when drought was only a word to justify smug satisfaction toward the bigger state further south. I want to have one last love affair with the earth before we both die, too decrepit and worn to fall into deep passion and wet ecstasy in one another's arms. Give me time, I'm asking for time. Give me soft moss, give me great chasms of awe. Sweep me off a windy mountain, plunge me into watery depths over and over again. I remain insatiable. I stand feebly against the apocalypse with pickled beets and heirloom beans, broccoli, lettuce, and parsnip seed. 4 cords of seasoned maple for the winter. I stand only as tall as I dare against the machine. Dread of the San Andreas Fault dropping a chunk of the California coast into the sea is an old 20th century anxiety. Doomsday now resides in the Cascadian subduction zone, admiring the view, while the Juan de Fuca plate slides under the North American continent. I don't want to grow old together in futile observation of aches and pains and broken ecosystems, losing my teeth and my breath while my beloved earth sheds species, withered and dry, raging against the dying of the light. I'd rather go out in one catastrophic orgasm, landslide crashing down behind me, vast tsunami wall rising up in front. Great maw, ring of fire, swallow me inside. No burning, keening carcass left to find. Thank you.
Wow.
Well, thank you, Mary, and thank you, Chris, for recommending Mary. That was a real treat. Our next featured reader is Christopher Jarmick. He's a Seattle area writer. Chris, you're the first person, the only person, to send me 3 bios, a short, medium, and long, which I really appreciate, you know. On the website I put the long one, because, you know, but for this one I'm reading the medium one.
Oh,
There is a long one. He's a Seattle area writer, and he's a former Los Angeles TV producer who has curated and hosted monthly poetry readings and special events since 2001. In November of 2016, he became the owner of Booktree in Kirkland, Washington's only new and gently used independent bookstore. Washington's born and raised back east in New Jersey and New York. He lived in LA for about 19 years before making Seattle his home in '94, because it was a much better place to raise his 3 daughters. His writing and poetry has been published in several literary presses, newspapers, magazines, and online. His newest collection of poetry, Not Allowed, was published in 2015 by Moonpath Press. Please welcome Chris.
Thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. Good to see that not just Leopoldo, but this place is going to stick around for a little while. So I was very happy. I'm sad to see that there was a danger of it going away, and it's a wonderful thing when the community can come together and help this place stay here. It's very needed. I know certain coffee shops and bookstores, and there's certain community places that are very important, and I'm glad to see it here. Poem starter, 1,418. This is the icebreaker, the throwaway, the slightly off-centered one that I will read first. Nice try. I will try, just not to the obsessive lengths some others insist upon. If you have decided you aren't going to like me, it's doubtful I'll ever change your mind. And trying to do so is always, and in all ways, a losing proposition. And one by someone named Mary Crane. Sonnet in Yakima Canyon. An afternoon play of light and shadow across the canyon, the pale green flush of early grass, muted blue of new green grown sage, and yellow flash of balsam root are scrutinized in the watchful gaze of bighorn sheep. Sure-footed, bounding through the scree, quenched their thirst at a mountain creek. This scene should be eternal, but it's not. Though its history is written on the rocks in ochre, black, and gold for anyone who cares to learn the language, there's truth, if not beauty, in the knowledge that nothing turns out quite the way we thought. Poem starter, 1859. I am not, for my size, even 1/50th as fast as a hummingbird, but neither are you. Poem starter, 1936. Breaking news, breaking news. Again, the news is breaking. Rocket Man, we will destroy you, he says. And you are dotard, comes the reply. Diplomacy in the style of overgrown 12-year-olds. Breaking news, breaking news. Again, the news is breaking. Always breaking. Needs to be fixed. An engineer's approach to modern dating. When plotting the conversation, one considers a cornucopia of possible pleasing results, he explained, following beer number 3. Ultimately, of course, one hopes to influence another to change from a state of suspicion and near frigidity to have the exponential mathematics of magnetism melt the levels of icy defense and caution to create interest, intrigue, mystery, and move toward a creation of attraction. If interest has been created, then one wisely moves down the path of least resistance, hoping to manufacture some desire. For it is upon the foundation of desire one builds an architecturally sound vehicle capable to move through all the rules implied or suggested in pursuit of love's delightful labors. Lines must curve, focus must soften, tension must relax, trust must be developed, and then one can move with a little less caution, with a little more boldness toward the ultimate human goal that will lead to one enchantment and fulfillment, or at least quench one's insatiable, lustful thirst for mock procreation, in order to reach a temporary state of physical nirvana. So tell me, I said, did you at least get her phone number? Kids for sale. Kids for sale, kids for sale, 10 cents a pound, easy credit terms, been turned down, credit problems, we don't know how to say no. Kids for sale, buy 2 and get the third one half off, buy 5 and get 1 absolutely free. I've got 3, my neighbor has a couple, there's a seemingly endless supply by the school. We're listing them on eBay, bid before 12 noon tomorrow. They are the best of the lot and will thrive in your good home. Downsizing, everything must go, don't delay, act today. All sales final, going out of business, girls, boys, all kids must go, none left behind. Kids for sale, 10 cents a pound, easy credit terms. Some of you are parents. Poem starter, 7,777. Remember, the rabbit's foot wasn't so lucky for the bunny. Poem starter 301. A good start is what's important. Finish later. Big dots. Flo and Eddie walked into a bar and Dick Dale showed them a surf guitar riff, but they knew they had to get to Pomona. It was a dream they had. Look, the waitress winked, I've got some new shag carpet at my place that needs to be broken in. She was ahead of her time. I knew there was no place I would rather be. No, wait, there was one other place. I needed to get there. The top was down on my car again, and I raced along Pacific Coast Highway at that perfect mid-60s point in time. You know the intersection. I pulled over at Zuma and saw the girl with the polka dot bikini. I floated across the sand to her and could not have been more smooth if I was the peanut butter on the roof of Annette Funicello's mouth. I might have been. Anyway, I became the dots for a while. My so-called American life. You've programmed me to want more than I can afford, taught me to be able to get more than I can afford, so I can owe someone more than I can afford for the rest of my unnaturally extended life. I am one big, never-ending Oliver Stone movie. I am a giant mouth with an insatiable sweet tooth and an unquenchable thirst. My rush needs a rush. I need to shout, scream, and yell at 11 and 12 speaker surround sound that I deserve more, more, more. Inject 1,000 cc's of distraction into my Pullman artery so I can permanently escape from reality. Let me recapture my forgotten, spent youth. Own all the songs I ever got high to in college. Give me the movies I first saw in between commercials in black and white. Monty Hall's Castro convertible couch. A new car! A modern all-electric house with antique dining room chair replicas made of indestructible polyurethane plastic that doesn't squeak. I want my kids to have everything they want as long as I give it to them, and they know that I gave it to them, and they tell all their friends that I gave it to them, and they love me for it even more, more, more. I deserve it. I think hard, wish hard, play hard, paying the interest on the interest. I master the credit card roulette. I'm the refinance king, robbing Peter to pay Paul and Mary. I don't have to pay for half of it until the next decade. I want to invent a new sense so I can overstimulate it, plug it into the internet, and let it fly and crash through game sites, sex sites, chat rooms, until I wind up a flashing pop-up spam ad on a billion screens. No time. I've given up on religion and politics. No time to think. Everyone I know is crooked, telling me too loudly what they think I want to hear. I can't take it with me, so I better enjoy it all right now. I'm steering my car with my knees so I can text. More, more, more. Crash landing on a mold-infested bad lollipop cruise ship. I realize everything I've enjoyed has made me fat, sick, lazy, and dumber than the Hollywood suits who approve the blockbusters I watch from my personal 2-story 3D IMAX home theater. So make me forget and strap me onto the roller coaster ride and go faster. No pain, all gain. Give me the recycled, updated, brand new, all-improved, retro, advanced, new age, stunning technological breakthrough with added bells, whistles, extended warranty, money-back guarantee, free servicing, and updating for life. Let me swallow the latest pill that makes me stay up 2 inches younger and thinner. I'll drink it down with a triple shot mocha, almond, mint, all-fat, tall sprinkle of cinnamon with room for more, more, more. Poem starter number 86. The poetry of drunks is sobering. Recovery girl. Recovery girl takes her first few steps on the tightrope stretched over Relapse Canyon. Loved ones hold their breath for her, needing to help, knowing they must not. There's little confidence inside Recovery girl. She must trust words from an invisible coach, ignore how naked, how utterly alone she feels, and she must fight with every thread of her soul the irresistible urge to look down. Poem starter 1958. Listen closely and you'll hear the sound of my life beating. Polaroid 7. The teacher refused to teach, ignoring my question, failing to explain, worse than a schoolmate taunt, than even a spanking. I feel embarrassed, become invisible. At night, father yells, "You're lazy, you're stupid." I cry without tears, not knowing what to do. Powerless, I yell back in silence. Near bedtime, my cat contentedly purrs because I pet him. Jealously, I stop. More about father and son. You'll never amount to anything. Are you ever going to learn? Are you going to sleep all day? You can't go on like this. You need to go to church. You'll never amount to anything. Don't talk back to me. There are no free rides, pal. You think you have it tough. Who the hell do you think you are? You better straighten up. This is my house, my rules. You'll never amount to anything. This is no way to live your life. What the hell is the matter with you? When are you going to grow up? Turn the music down. What do you know about it, Mr. Buninsky? Not fair. Life isn't fair. You'll never amount to anything. Money doesn't grow on trees. Don't you care what people think? Stop being so selfish. Shut up and listen to me for a change. You're going to wind up in jail. You'll never amount to anything. I don't want to hear about it. You need to be more responsible, Mr. Smarty Pants, Mr. Know-it-all. Call me when you don't need anything. Goodbye. Hello? Is everything okay? Where are you? It's been too long since we've heard from you. I tried to call you, but the number was disconnected. You taking care of yourself? Well, you must be doing something right. I don't know how you do it. I'm proud of you. You know, you can tell me anything. I'm here to listen. Well, you know where we are. I love you. The wedding photograph. Let your life lightly dance on the edges of time like dew on the tip of a leaf. In the wedding photograph, My father looks barely old enough to drive, a fish out of order, too skinny, ears too large, dressed in a fancy tux, extra wide tie, big white carnation, nervously smiling, seeing blank canvas, entitled From This Day Forth. Look closer, giant ferns in the background of this table they share. The wedding cake topper, out of focus in the foreground, in front of Dad. In front of Mom, 2 candles burning. She looks calm, poised, composed. Her diaphanous wedding veil, her white wedding gown, the princess getting what she is supposed to want. Clean linens, champagne, family, friends, her arm through his, their hands together, just below his breast jacket pocket. Is hers balled up into a fist? His wrapped around it? Dad knows, but he wants stillness, no attention on him. She can't simply be placed neatly into his life. What am I doing here? No, I mean, I'm happy to be here. People taking pictures, so many pictures. A fancy reception, all this attention on us. His marriage will be happier than his parents. He will avoid making the mistakes his father made. She is worth it. Vaguely, he knows somehow there will be a place of their own. Soon a master's degree in electrical engineering and children, perhaps. He knows more than one is best. He will give more than he ever got. This is our glorious day. They want to be happy for us. Happy wife, able to look so poised and beautiful for this picture. Dad can't quite get comfortable being in the spotlight. 60 years and more than 3,000 miles away, their son now holds black and white memory, composing revisionist words of a time and place he never knew, seeing Dad as an overwhelmed young man at the beginning of what will define the rest of his life. Millie. The surface of the lake ripples as cool breeze soothes, partly cloudy sky, the perfect northwest light warm. It accentuates the shades of green my blue eyes spy. I stand in appreciation how fortunate I live in this place, where a majestic view such as this of immense lake, green trees, stretches out in front of me. I can be at water's edge in 5 minutes, touch the water I am looking at in less than 5 minutes. I can slip off my shoes and feel the icy, cool lake water, look for mallards, ducks, blue herons. Someone will be out in a kayak, another in a sailboat. I can wave to a jogger. A teacher who taught my daughter will bicycle by. I can watch an elderly couple walk slowly on dirt paths in less than 5 minutes. I'm trying not to be too depressed. My aunt has just died. It's good her suffering has ended. My memories of Millie are from several years ago, not from the past year. I didn't want her to suffer with the cancer. No one deserves such suffering. She who shared and gave so much should be shown mercy and compassion. Little could be done to help her. Time to say goodbye. The snapshot memories of her at family gatherings, smiles, a tone of voice, laughter. The time they drove 200 miles, we drove 50, to meet and have dinner. Warm, caring, generous. I cut short family gatherings, as teenagers often do, later realizing the era of close families was ending. It was not so common for so many aunts and uncles and cousins to gather together several times per year. Not anymore, not ever again. I saw her son 2 years ago. Joey still had enough of his youthful face that I remembered, moments newly forgotten at family gatherings. It had been nearly 3 decades since I saw Joey. He wasn't at the wedding 2 decades ago. Almost 1 decade since I saw Aunt Millie and Uncle Larry. Time passes. Ripples on the surface of the lake. I can be there in 5 minutes. More. When people close to us die, we lose a string, a safety line. We may feel a punch to the gut, a sword through our heart. It is time for a good cry, nostalgic tears, what could, should have been sobs. Some primal screams at how unfair it all seems to be or in order. Then quiet reflection as you assess, reorder, prepare, and a long, long sigh. There is more to see, to learn, to share. The departed don't worry about the past. They remain part of our fabric, the texture we must let others touch. What is that? Feels good, it's interesting. And you should say, it is a gift I was given, something I get to share differently than would have been possible yesterday. And you should be thinking, I will not be too sad. I will be grateful. I will be more aware of time, open this window a little wider, be a little more daring, more caring, more. Damn right I like the rain. You're damn right I like the rain. Everything smells better after a good rain. I sleep better when it rains. I like to read or watch a good movie. I want to cook comfort food. I think about what kind of homemade soup I'm in the mood for when it rains. People get closer to each other and talk more when it rains. If it's raining hard or sideways because of wind, if it's been gray day after gray day and I'm starting to feel I'm stuck inside, then I let my imagination take me to wonderful places. Damn right I like the rain. Poem starter, 1923. When we believe without a doubt, we are absolutely, completely, 110% right, it's only because something has been overlooked. This next one is called The River Crossed. It's for Sam Hamill, who would have been 75 today. He passed April 14th after a long illness. The river crossed. The river crossed washes away the dirt of the journey. Stand a moment, be clean, reset, breathe deep. Stay a moment in a safe place. The teaching surpasses the teacher. Discipline must be learned and is necessary. When you must eat bitter fruit to survive, when isolation brings peace, but the world gets smaller, louder, meaner, when the hand you reach for is no longer near and you stumble in the mud, let the river crossed wash away the dirt of the journey. Not a Mother's Day poem. My first Mother's Day as a motherless child. I send no bouquet to Mom this year. Instead, I'll look up at the sky, say, I love you, thanks. What movie to watch? A few days after my mom's 90th birthday, my sister Jackie called and asked if I had read my emails this morning. I did not. Mom died this morning. I talked to Mom 4 days ago. She sounded better than she had for quite some time. We talked about old movies, about Cary Grant, and we laughed. When she turned the phone over to my dad, I said, I love you. She would usually just say, you too. But this time she said, I love you too. Here's your dad. Sometimes the quiet and stillness, even with jazz from the NPR station playing in the background, is comforting. Now it is surreal, as an overwhelming number of memories mesh into each other. Old 8mm home movie images, flickering Kodak moments. Later, when I talked to Dad, he said his last words last night to her were, I love you. When he left for church service this morning, she was still sleeping. When he returned and checked on her, he saw her eyes open, her lips slightly apart. He sighed. Oh, Gussie. He is glad she went first. She's such a private person, it's good she didn't have to deal with someone else trying to take care of her. She couldn't take care of herself, you know. I'm grateful for this. We've been together 67 years and I've never really been alone. Mom and Dad moved nearly 4 years ago to an assisted living community a few miles from my sister and brother-in-law. Mom didn't go out, didn't socialize, refused to go to the doctors, and even if forced, was uncooperative. But in recent weeks, medications were adjusted, things seem to be improving. Dad is glad family is close by. I'm not going to worry about anything for at least a month. There's a lot to do right now with Easter, Good Friday, Stations of the Cross, a lot I'm involved with. But I'm not going to do anything for a month. Good, Dad, I say. You have the right priorities. Yes, take care of yourself. Yes, take care of myself, he agrees. And then a long sigh. I'm not sure what to do. I just want to talk to her some more. We argued sometimes got mad, but I never thought of being without her. I want to talk to her some more. Ask her, what movie do you want to watch? I think I'm going to read just a couple more. Poetry, oh poetry. For darkness restores what light cannot repair. Joseph Brodsky. Poetry has been my ruin. Sucker punched my breath away. Tenderly held me with promise that there would be peace, while always, in all ways, letting me know I've just begun. Poetry I have much to learn, to do, to write. In poems, it ranged from wet mists dampening the streets, causing bare skin to glisten, to torrential downpours that wash away the recent past. The best poets sometimes move between the drops, not to stay dry, but to choose how they feel the rain. Poetry, oh poetry, I ask that you teach more about the rain, but you demand too much at inconvenient times, keep me out too late, show me liars and phonies, hold up mirrors, forcing me to see myself. In poetry there is true light, epiphanous light, beaming through clouds, dazzling as it kaleidoscopes through thick, leaf-bearing tree branches, and transforms common, rolling hills into masterpieces of unexpected textures and shapes and myriad shades of green. And then, with blinding intensity, defensive poses are sandblasted, leaving me exposed, vulnerable, confused, half-finished. Poetry threw me out of careers. You are not short-order cook, journalist, movie maker, comedian, actor, salesman, marketer, stockbroker, landscape designer, or consultant. Abandon all, you are poet. Yes, I said, as poetry next hid from me in unsavory places, leaving crumbs in awful spaces, as weak and thirsty I stumbled in my search. Poetry, oh poetry, beloved poetry, forsake me not, embrace me as I have embraced you, truth me into knowing, save me from my ignorance, fill me with your knowing. Poetry, oh poetry, forsake me not, clothe me, embrace me, don't let me drown in the middle of this endless ocean after you have guided me to blow up the ship. Poetry, oh poetry. I like dead poets. I don't have to be nice to dead poets. If I am bored with their poems, I can close the book and stop reading. They will never know. They do not ask me what I think of their poems. I don't have to give a drunk dead poet a ride home. They won't vomit in my car. They don't need cab fare. I have not been stuck with a dead poet's bill. I have not had to make excuses for a dead poet's behavior. A dead poet has never stolen a phrase or idea from me. I like dead poets. Someday, I will be a dead poet too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Chris. I was just, I felt like a feast, you know, that I can't eat everything, you know. It's just laid out there. A few things kind of I was able to swallow. Kind of, the last one probably was just the thing about, you know, help me get through this ocean. I'm paraphrasing, you know, after you taught me how to burn up the ship. I mean, there was an imagery around that, you know, burn down the ship, and there you are. So anyway, you've set the table, a feast, and we'll have Community Mike after. We'll take a 10-minute break and get a chance to get yourself a favorite drink from my favorite barista, George. And also, I encourage you, if you're so inclined, to let Mary and Chris know the impact of hearing them read. I mean, I've never actually met a poem and didn't want to hear that. Don't tell them whether it was good or bad or anything. That's immaterial. But if you were affected by it, let them know how you were affected by it. I'll see you back here in 10 minutes.
Yes, I saw you last year, about a year ago, and the last time I was here, you were.
So I was historical and social awareness. Very hard. That kind of thing was always I was taken to those places. Passionate. I appreciate that. As well as all the sort of personal unity in the poem. You call it persona or something. I love that. Poets, life, art, and soul. What do you think?
No, well, they know, but they're not sharing it.
Where you come, right? It's, I think it's like September 8th. It's in September. Yeah, it's Green Lane.
No, I was
Or in the
trying to.
afternoon, I think it's September.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to.
I know it's September.
I looked in September and I didn't see it in my calendar. But the second Saturday, well, the second Saturday is the 8th.
Yeah.
It's the 8th. Yeah?
Yeah, so take that.
I'll explain it. But if you want to do, just put your name on it.
Yeah, I
If you
did.
haven't already. I'll explain how it works. It always works. I've developed an approach. I've developed an approach that all around self-regulation. Leopold. Hi, Karen. You live here in Westside? And has the body rejected your organ? Yes. I got you. Oh, okay, right. Oh, I get you. Now you're kind of out here.
Yeah, and I'm self-governing.
Oh, yeah.
And this has really been, I can do rusty.
It ain't Carol. No, it ain't more than
Well, I
that.
gotta make it cute.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that, but, it's all my list, right? It's all my list, so. But, there has been some positions that make her money.
Oh, okay.
I only found out about it.
Are you on the email list?
I am not.
I'm going to get the
So should I
email list
just,
thing.
should I just put it on
Well,
here?
you can.
Would that be?
That's fine. I'm going to make a pitch though for the
Okay,
email.
I'll just write it on here.
Okay.
But I follow you on Facebook now, so.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Good.
But, emails are good. And,
Yeah, email's good because I send out stuff when there's updates to the website and stuff. So that's good. Good.
About 10 students. So where's Jesus going?
Oh, these are your students?
Where's Jesus going?
You want to go first?
Yes.
Students, where's that? Students, where?
So what? You already are first.
That's why I'm moving up front.
I thought you wanted to get a lot of applause.
These are students
For them, for them.
Yeah, these are students who are already into poetry, so they come expose what. I have a student at the right now, 20-something Chinese student.
Yeah.
He's in tears. Mr. Roberts told me
Why not?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and I said, he said, how does the guy in the baseball cap know my father? And I said, when he was writing it, I was thinking to myself, how does that guy in the baseball cap know my father?
That's amazing. That's good, yeah.
Well, you know what?
That's why you keep doing this, right? You're being blown away.
Because I'm a junkie. I'm an incredible junkie. I'm a poetry junkie.
You've been cast out on the ocean.
I'm okay with it.
Well, it's nice to pull our rafts up together once in a while.
It is, and I'm going through some shit. I'm going to be serving the newspapers on Saturday afternoon, so to lead into my community and my friends and my faith and all that great stuff.
Good. Alone is the worst.
Yeah. So, I don't feel it's taken a while. I moved out in August, so it's been 9 months. But I just moved into my own apartment. Yeah, I just moved into my own apartment April 1st. So it's pretty fresh. There's sort of a solitude that I am just regretting because I haven't lived alone since 1980. But now I don't know. I see my kids every day. I can't even start them in the morning and take them back to their house. And they spend the night with me at least 1 weekend a night a week.
I did very divorce three. Where when I was here, I was 35.
Wow.
Yeah. I was thinking, God, is that good to anything?
Yeah.
But there's hope.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to bring people back here and get things going. Okay, welcome back. I'm just waiting for somebody to read a poem in which every word starts with a P. You know, like pleasurable, ponies, pasturing, you know, the P's are the worst, right? You know, with these mics. I'm doing my best over there. By the way, there is no perfect mic, according to the Guitar Center, that will, you know, work for everybody. He said you need a perfect, when I called him, I want to find out, I'll buy the perfect mic. He said, what you need is a perfect sound man. And I'm not the perfect sound man. And I'm not going to learn this day, but I'm doing my best over there to do that. But the P's, you're just going to have to live with them. P's, 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 P's. So we're going to, I need to ask a question. How many of you are students of Mike Hickey? Raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
I am.
Yeah, okay. How many of you were basically either coerced or threatened?
I was.
Yeah. In order to come. Well, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. I'm hoping you're enjoying it. And we're going to start out with Mike, because I know a number of you have got to get home, get to bed by 9 o'clock, right? Because well, maybe not.
Get home and study for tomorrow.
Study.
Yeah.
Oh. I see. All right. There will be a test on this, by the way. Okay, if that helps. Okay. So here's how this works. Somebody asked me, Carolyn, who's put her name on here, how this thing works, and it works this way. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that have signed up, and Carolyn, you want to raise your hand? There's Carolyn. How many of you would like to hear Carolyn read? Yeah. In order for that to happen, the other 4 before, you know, you somehow, what time is it? Do you have the time?
8:13.
8:13, so we have exactly 47 minutes divided by 5. That's a pretty good amount of time. Well, what is that, 47 minutes? 9 minutes each, right? But so some of you will take less, some of you might take a little more. Don't try to take too much more, you know, and that way everyone will get to read. And here's how it works. Two other things is I'll introduce the first person, it'll be Mike Hickey, and then the second thing will be is that when Mike's done, to a thunderous applause, which always happens, he will introduce the next person, Cheryl Lateef, and so on, so I don't have to keep popping up here. The other thing we got going here is that when you introduce the person, on their way up to the stage, we all, this is absolute requirement, need to applaud and make a lot of noise very robustly until their foot hits the stage. I teased Mike that he's sitting up here because he doesn't need the applause. But I said, I still think you ought to do it for at least 5 seconds. Just to make them feel a little uncomfortable. All right, so wait a second. I want you to move up here very, very slowly. I would like to introduce our first community micer. And I call it community mic, not open mic, because pay attention to the fact that there's a community here. And, you know, people that are staying in the room, and it's not just therapy. You know, it's, we're all trying to contribute something to each other. Okay, so please welcome Mike Hickey. You're doing really good, by the way.
Or as I like to be called, Community Mike. Get it? Community Mike. Oh my gosh. I just want to say really quickly, Mary Crane and Chris Jarmick, how about another round of applause? You guys are sensational. I've got a bunch of students here tonight, and one of them is 1-year-old Killian. What's up, bro? What's up, my brother? He's not my student yet, so I'll be decades away. But to all of my students here are here tonight, you should know this. Leopoldo has read poetry at my school before. You should know that when a teacher says that if you come to the reading, it's optional extra credit, it's never optional. It's always required, okay? As you well know, Stephen. So, this poem was published in Atlanta Review, and it was, Cheryl, remember the Washington State Poets Association? Were you ever part of that? Chris, were you ever part of Washington State Poets Association? I was going to a convention in Ellensburg once, and I was there early, and I went to a tavern to eat beforehand, and a guy told me this story. I don't know if it's true or not, but like, never let the facts get in the way of a good story, right? And it ended up in the Atlanta Review. The poem is called Don't Read This Poem, and the title is part of the first line. Don't read this poem unless your glass is half full. Unless you're willing to believe that for every pissed off tornado like the one in The Wizard of Oz, there is a sweet sister twister like the whirlwind in St. Mary's, Kansas, 1993. Ma asleep for hours, I hit the rack around midnight, Pa stumbles home drunk as usual, fumbles to find his key, but there is no keyhole, because there is no house. The old white A-frame is now perched 100 feet away, with uncanny symmetry on top of the barn. As Ma and I snooze dreamily inside, heirloom china neither chipped nor cracked, antique crystal in mint condition, no farm girls struck on the head, no animals killed or unaccounted for, just a friendly pick-me-up from a lonely cyclone, roaming through Tornado Alley on a Saturday night, with God's fingerprint swirls all over it. 4 miles down the road, the torrent spins a glorious pit stop through O'Malley's greenhouse, plucks a sizable garden of pink gardenias, and twirls its way through the state of Kansas, a resplendent vacuum of positive energy, a tap-dancing pink tornado of love. Thank you. That's Killian back there. This is called Love Letters from Goliath's Ex-Girlfriend. So I was telling Leopoldo I'm being served with divorce papers on Saturday, so there's a sort of a new meaning to this. Yeah, you can say, "Aw, I appreciate that." Aw. She's a bitch. What? The mic was on for that? Oh my God.
Oh dear.
You know, this is being beamed live on YouTube.
Kind of about that. This is called Love Letters from Goliath's Ex-Girlfriend. The stars in Nishran's eyes are always on the verge of combustion. Her eyebrows live in separate worlds, yet long for one another. Her lips speak the body language of the moon, and the neck that leads to her heart is the same neck that remembers what every other neck has forgotten ages ago. She is a Philistine who loves Hebrews. She is a fallen star that will never stop shining. Goliath herds sheep and at nightfall whispers to bleating lambs abandoned by their mothers. He loves Nishi. He has always loved Nishi. But what with tending his flock for weeks at a time and Nishi barely keeping company, one night at a harvest feast she is in the embrace of Omni, a warrior known for his fearsomeness in battle. Goliath can't stop staring at them. When he can bear it no longer, he draws his sword and threatens to behead the philanderer. Nishi throws herself at Goliath's feet. She shows him the love letters she has scribed daily for a fortnight, proclaiming her fidelity, her devotion, letters she keeps in a leather pouch next to her heart. In these letters, she praises Omni's eyes, worships his war wounds, and swoons over the musk of his scent after battle. He's the only man I've ever loved. If you have to kill someone, she exclaims, kill me, for I am nothing without Omni. She points to her belly. Already I carry the fruit of his loins in my womb. Deep inside Goliath, a bright light darkens into an elongated shadow, a contorted silhouette. He commences to drinking gourds of wine from morning to night and fighting Philistines he once considered friends. He wants men to fear him, not because of his size, 4 cubits and a span, but because he doesn't have the heart to hate Nishi, so he hates himself instead. Contempt is the air he breathes, even in his dreams. This is what love can do when it turns. One day you've got a good job and you're in love. The sunset splashes the horizon with its palette of purples and pinks, and each of your bones feels as lucky as a wishbone. But turn your head for just an instant, and the next thing you know, you're felled by a midget with a couple river rocks and a mandate from on high. This is the kind of love that compels wild dogs to howl at the moon. This is the kind of love in which being beheaded by your own sword is nothing less than a giant favor. I've got kind of a theme going here tonight, unintentional. I read this one for Leopoldo because it's over 20 years old. It occurred to me once that I had never written a love poem, so I wanted to write a love poem. And so I actually wrote my first love poem in 2nd grade to Ellen Curl. And I was quite the player in 2nd grade. Anyway, there are some poems, as you two know, you have to work on really hard, and there are other poems that just, bam, they're there. And so I didn't really fabricate anything here. All of this is really true, and it's in 3 sections. And the first section is actually the poem that I wrote at age 7. Love poem, part 1. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, you're my girlfriend, you are, you are. Roses are red, violets are blue, I hope you like me, 'cause I like you. Part 2. The first poem I ever wrote was the worst poem I ever wrote, except to her, Ellen Curl, my 2nd grade girlfriend. Eyes blue as planet Earth viewed by astronauts in space, bangs, dimples, pleated skirt and knee socks. She showed me her appendectomy scar at twilight behind the baseball diamond at St. Augustine's. And that's real love, my friends. My composition for her was recopied in gold ink by Jim, my next door neighbor, an 8th grader with perfect cursive that flowed like calligraphy on fire. And the next day, when Sister Mary Peter turned her back in class, I gave the poem to Ellen, whose smile spread while she read it like ocean waves in slow motion. Later that month, her dad got transferred. Ellen's family moved to Mount Vernon, 60 miles away, which might as well have been Hong Kong. And all that week, I cried myself to sleep and didn't eat and didn't even watch TV. Part 3. 15 years later, I'm home from college on summer break at the county fair, between the cotton candy and tilt-a-whirl, and a friend leads me to the parking lot, someone I have to see. And there she is, Ellen Curl, leaning against a pickup truck, still those blue planet eyes. Hugs, small talk, remember 2nd grade? And just before we leave forever, again, she says, wait. And I swear to God this is true. She says, wait, and from the darkest African regions of her wallet, she pulls out the poem in gold ink, paper tattered and yellow as a harvest moon, that she's been keeping in her purse since 2nd grade. And it occurs to me in the parking lot, alive with rainbow snow cones and blue rhythm chrysanthemums, I may have peaked with the first poem I ever wrote. An astronaut on a mission, planting flags and stomping around on the chalk dust of a twinkling little star.
Oh.
I know. I'll read 2 more. This is my favorite poem of all time. I didn't write it. It was written by a 6-year-old named Emma. It's called What is Love? Love is when you're missing some of your teeth, but you're not afraid to smile because you know your friends will still love you, even though some of you is missing. And I've never read this poem before. I think I'm going to end with this one. This is for my 2 sons, Nathan and TJ. Nathan turned 12 yesterday. And we went bowling and ate at Denny's, which we've done a million times. And afterwards I said, man, I feel bad, dude. We haven't done really anything special today. And he says, he thinks for a minute, and he says, you know, whenever I'm with you, that's enough. Just being with you is enough. Oh. And my thought was like, okay, I will kill someone and blood for you, but this is the last time, okay? And I don't know, he's an amazing kid. So one day when he was 4, he said, Daddy, let's turn off the lights and see what the dark has to say. And I'm like, well, hell, I'm stealing that. Yes, I'm allowed to plagiarize you because you're my son. So this is called a poem for Nathan. Let's turn off the light and see what the dark has to say. Let's elicit new octaves, fold notes from the radio into our xylophone ribcage, and play an anthem popular with poplar trees. Oaks have forgiven axes, the living has forgiven the dead, and strange lovers are no longer estranged. There is nothing in the air tonight but air. Tomorrow we'll examine and scrutinize our mystery bruises, but tonight we will tiptoe across the ice hand in hand, listen for cracks, and dream of guitars that refuse to play the blues. Sadness has taken an open-ended vacation, short-lived perhaps, but long overdue. Tonight we are all touch points in the constellation of the underdog. Welcome home, my son. Welcome home. Thank you. I read up here, I was a featured reader in February, and I was talking to this next poet who I've known for a long time, and it turns out that she lives in a really cool apartment complex, and they never have openings, and somebody was next to her was moving out. She said, you should check it out, and I did, and I now I'm her next door neighbor. And she borrows cups of sugar all the time. It's the weirdest thing. Anyway, the next person is not only a really good friend, but an amazing poet. Cheryl Lateef, everyone.
All right.
Thank you, Mike. I love that you read that poem about the darkness. I happened to see Nathan yesterday on his birthday, and he talked to me about what the darkness says. And he actually writes poetry, and he gave me a poem a couple weeks ago, and I had no idea that you'd written this. It was wonderful after talking to Nathan last night. And thank you for reading, both of you. Good to hear you again. Never enough. So this first poem is called Gifts. For weeks, the squirrels have made a mess of autumn, gnawing through tender branches, their work falling to the eaves, clogging the gutters. One, fat and beautiful, chooses instead to climb the old growth stump across the kitchen window. He sits in its mouth-like notch where I have left food, greedily separating shell from seed. His frenetic pace belies the fact that I will return, leave more for him tomorrow. Today, on my way to the mailbox, I stopped to enjoy his bird-like calls. Wind sighs through cedars, waving me on, as though this were not one of God's moments, as though one could ever be through with delight. Where I lived when I wrote that, I was at the edge of a forest, and I never before knew that squirrels sounded like birds, and it was pretty amazing. So and deer came in the yard sometimes. I have a poem about that as well, but not tonight. This is called Prayer Beads. Quiet as the dawning sky, I sit, anticipating birdsong, unsure about the sun. This stillness, my pilgrimage. At memory's pool, I kneel, drink in your visage, mindful not to disturb the surface, alter the spell with even a ripple of need. You leave gifts at my door, bits of song, slightly faded photographs, pages torn from an unfinished manuscript, untitled maps. I cannot decipher them without you. I have caught you like rain on my tongue, released you in beads of sweat, returned to the quiet again and again to light candles, burnt sandalwood, remember what I know. In pools of light, I hold your words, a rosary. Feel your desire in the smooth roundness of each bead. Cast prayers of strength. Wait for a sign. This is actually the first poem that I ever had published, and I didn't submit anything again for 20 years or something. It's a long story, but anyway. It's entitled The Dancer. You've entered my life with the ease of a dancer, gliding your way across this set. A breeze creates soft rustle in the night leaves. Through my heart, a song whispers in your name. Your movements, leaps, lunges, dance of the lover, rhythmic chant of body and earth, a tribute to two moving together, making their own breezes through the air. Lie quiet, love. You have brought me your gift. I will hum my song. Through my dreams beside you, I know your own heart, speaking softly its night dance with my own. You go to your weekly, life calls us all. What remains with me is a kind of silence, a kind silence resounding in joy. It's as deep as the sea, as wise as the canyons, as old as mountains standing silent, majestic, knowing. I surrender myself to the knowledge of the mountains. They have survived so much more than I. And look up to see against a brilliant sunrise, a lone dancer paying tribute to this world. And next up is Scaloid.
Thank you very much. Whoa. And chapter from a book that I'm working on to be published. I just talked to another agent, and those people that know me already know that I've been offered 2 contracts already, and my lawyer told me not to sign them, so I'm still working on it. I have poetry over there for sale and an anthology, but I'm not going to read them. I just like to let you know they're there. I have read them here before. I'm going to read from my book called Down the Road a Piece. It's about an African-American family during the late 50s who lived in Hawaii and in San Diego, and went to private schools and lived in integrated neighborhoods in that period of time, which was relatively unique for the United States. And they did not know anything about what was going on anyplace else. And in 1957, the parents said, "You're going to meet your relatives." They live in the Deep South. So it's awakening. I've read chapter 1, 2, and 3, and the last chapter, one of the protagonists, and his name happened to be Gay Lloyd, his brother stuck his hand, his father was frying chicken to take on the trip. The hot oil, and his brother took his hand and stuck it in the hot oil, and they took him to the hospital and bandaged him up and brought him back, and that's where chapter 4 begins. It's called The New Car. Philip's piercing scream filled every nook in the kitchen. He holds his blistering hand to his chest and falls to the floor, rolling and wailing. Frozen in place, I cover my mouth. Dad spins around, his face flushed. He yanks Michael off the bench and dangles him by his ankles above the deep fryer. "Boy, I ought to stick your head in there." Michael's the one that stuck his hand in the oil. "Daddy, Daddy, no!" Michael hollers. Stunned, I watch Michael squirm upside down. I'm not the only one unable to intervene. No one tries to stop Dad. He lifts Michael away from the stove, sets him on the floor, and looks at Mr. and Mrs. Cook. They stare at him. He puts Philip on his lap. "My God, look at his hand." Mom rushes from the kitchen and hurries back with cocoa butter and a towel. "Gaylord, put some water in a bowl." I fill a large mixing bowl and hand it to her. She sets it on the table and submerges Philip's hand. He screams. "I should have watched more closely," Dad says under his breath to Mom. "I thought the boys knew I was joking." So Dad had said, "Oh, why don't you stick your hand there and see how hot it is?" Hey, joking. Mom, that was another chapter, so I just tell you that. Mom carefully rubbed cocoa butter on Philip's hand. His dark skin moved, showing a bright pinkish color. Michael leans against the edge of the table. "I'm sorry," he sobs as loud as Philip. After Dad and Philip leaves for the hospital and the neighbors go home, I put the chicken away in the refrigerator. James wipes off the table, Charles plays with his truck, and the baby sleeps. Mom takes Michael into our bedroom and closes the door. I hear her muffled voice above the weeping, but I can't make out what she says. I hope the doctors can heal Philip's hand. A boy in my school burned his right hand when he was small. His fingers curled like an eagle's claw, preventing him from using it except to hit the tetherball. I wonder if that will happen to my brother. 4 hours later, Dad returns with Philip. "This is a fine howdy-do," he says to Mom. "I don't want this accident to ruin our trip. We just have to take extra good care of Philip. The nurse gave me enough medical supplies to last a lifetime, and a list of military hospitals along the way if we need one." He turns to James, Michael, and me sitting at the kitchen table. "I need you boys to help us get ready for our trip." Dad looms over it. "Now, stay out of trouble." That night in bed, I listened to him play the grand piano in the living room. Oscar Hammerstein's Old Man River wafts into every room in the house. Probably even the neighbors hear him singing. It wouldn't be the first time. I try to imagine how Philip's hand looked under the layer of gauze. I'm sure it'll stick to his hand. Maybe his skin will pull off when Mom changes it. My heavy eyelids close as the music changed to Dad's favorite boogie-woogie tune, Down the Road a Piece. The next day I find Mom in my three younger brothers' room. Choosing what they'll need for the trip. There are 2 suitcases lined up against the wall under the window. Mom looks up from sorting their socks. I want you to get a suitcase and pack. You'll need church clothes, 2 pairs of everyday pants and shirt. Gaylord, don't forget your underwear. Yes, Mom. I have a smile on my face while I study which suitcase I want. I take the biggest one to my room, open it on my bed, and start to pack. James comes in and peers over my shoulder. What are you doing? What does it look like? I'm packing a couple of books and my yo-yo. I slide Alice in Wonderland off the shelf and leaf through to see how many pages it has. Turn the book over upside down. I see it's 2 books in one. Through the looking glass, another Lewis Carroll story. I put it on top of my shirts. James grabs the book. Don't put it in there. He throws it on my bed. There's no room for my things. Mom told me I have to put my clothes in with yours. He goes to the dresser and pulls out shirts, pants, and underwear. He dumps his clothes in a messy pile on top of mine. There, he says and smiles. I shake my head. You can't do that. Do what? Throw them in like that. I toss his stuff back at him. Fold them first. Who made you king of packing? They wouldn't fit if they were not folded. Oh yeah? He storms out, slamming the door. Come back here. I open the door and go after him, grabs the shirt and pulls it backward. Dad stands in front of us, arms crossed over his chest. James jerks away from me. I told you boys I don't want trouble. I'll be back in 10 minutes with a switch, and if your things aren't packed, he pokes his finger into James's chest, I'm going to wear out your behind. I turn and I run into the little kid's room. Mom has 2 open cases on their bed with my younger brother's clothes. You need help, I ask? Here, put these in that big bag on the pillow. She hands me 2 shirt waist dress, a full pleated skirt, all folded, and a hat box. What's in here? I open the box and I find a hat that looks like a halo with feathers. Mom, it's beautiful. Thank you. I made it for a contest at church and won first prize. I found the right color ribbons and attached 3 quail feathers. That one's for me. I'm taking another one for Aunt Myra. Dad saunters in, his broad smile stretching from one side of his face to the other. Honey, we're going for a ride. Where to? We're buying a car. Mom looks up from packing. What's wrong with the car we have? It's bad enough we have to worry about Philip's hand. I don't want to worry about breakdowns while we're on the road. It might be hard for us to find a place to get the car fixed. She studies him. Oh, for Pete's sake, she shakes her head. Why didn't you think of this a week ago? At the car lot, Dad's hard bargaining seems more with Mom than with the salesman. Her back is to him as she holds the baby. James is at her side. Let's just get something reasonable, she says. Dad circles a dark green 1957 Packard and then sits behind the steering wheel. Look at this, he says to Mom. The window sticker shows that it even has electric windshield wipers. Dad reaches over, opens the front passenger door and past the seat. Honey, sit here. Just see what this one feels like. I decide to check the other cars while they make up their mind. Bored, I wander into the showroom and over to a brand new Chevy, blue with white top and fantail trim. I climb into the passenger side. A blonde girl, maybe a year or two younger than me, sits in the driver's seat, pretending to drive. Let's race that yellow car. She points out the window to a Chevy convertible outside on the far side of the car lot. My mom and dad's looking at it. She likes the car. I think my dad is going to buy it for her. Can I drive this one? Yeah. She gets out and I scoot over. After she's seated, she tells me, you got to rev it up first. We roar as loud as we can, playing that we're racing away. Michael and Philip crawls into the back. What are you doing? Philip asks as he bounces on the seat. He holds the back of my seat with his bandaged hand. We're racing that yellow car out there, I point to it. Well, help you, Michael says. Okay. I make sounds, starting the engine, and everyone chimes in. We're in first. I pretend to shift to second, and we get louder. Then I put the car in the third. We yell at the top of our lungs. Hey, what are you kids doing? The salesman hollered from the front office. His green tie flips over his shoulder as he hurries towards us. He glares at me and sticks his head through the window on my side. Missy, your parents would have a fit if they saw you playing with these boys. He puts his head back out of the car. You boys, get over there to your parents. All of us climb out. You can stay, the man says to the girl. He moves between her and Michael as he puts his hand on her shoulder. I don't think your folks would mind if you're here. He turns to face me and my brothers and ease her behind him. Our parents don't care that we're over here, I say. The man swirls around and looks at me. Maybe not, but I want them to keep an eye on all of you. I push Michael's shoulders. Come on, guys. My brothers follow me outside. Their dad and mom are talking to a salesman in a blue seersucker suit and red tie. He pitches the car. You might not know this, but automatics are the pride of the automobile industries these days. He stands next to the vehicle, biting his bottom lip and staring at my brothers. Ma'am, this car would comfortably seat your whole family. He steps away from the Packard, his eyes darting from Dad to the showroom and back. We also have nice used cars on the lot across the street. Why don't we walk over there? Perhaps you'll find one more in your price range. My parents look at him but say nothing. Their face seemed blank as if the man wasn't there. The car has a radio, he smiles, and there's plenty of room in the trunk. He walks to the back and opens it. Of course, as I said before, we also have less expensive cars. He points to the used car lot again. No, but thank you, Dad says. The sticker price says $2,100. Will cash give me a better price? The salesman stands taller. How much are we talking about? Let's knock it down by 200. We might have a deal, but I have talked to my manager. The salesman practically sprints back to the showroom. I walk to where Dad is and kick the front tire on the driver's side. What are you doing, Dad asks. I saw the man on the TV commercial. I saw a man do that on the TV commercial. What do you expect to find out? I don't know, I admit. The salesman comes back with someone else, dressed in a black suit and tie. He looks important. Sir, says the new man, I'm Rodney Young, owner and manager of this establishment. It would be a pleasure to negotiate a price we both can live with, but our cars are already at rock bottom. $200 is a significant discount, maybe too much. Is this beyond your budget? I've checked prices with other car dealers, Dad says. I like what you have, and I'm ready to drive this car off the lot for $1,900. I'll even throw in my car. He points to where it's parked on the near showroom. It's a 52 Ford. Is that fair enough? 5 years, it's a pretty old car. Let's take a look. Dad leads Mr. Young to our car. It's in fine shape. I drive it only when my ship's in port. We circle it, and Dad opens the door. Mr. Young whistles. I'm surprised to see how clean you kept the engine. Dad stands a little straighter more than he usually does. I take care of it. Mr. Young kicks the tire. Dad looks at me and rolls his eye. I grin. You drive a hard bargain, but I guess we can make it work. If you and your wife will come to my office, I'll write up the contract. Dad holds out his hand, but Mr. Young looks at it, then at the car before he shakes his hand, and they begin heading off to the office. I grab Dad's arm. What about us? Wait in the showroom, he says, and pulls away. But the other guy said to stay with you. I point to the man. Mr. Young frowns. You boys can sit on the bench and wait for your parents. Don't wander around. The little girl waves at me. She's standing in front of her parents across the showroom. Her dad's right hand's on her shoulder and his arms is around her mother. They look happy. I wave back. Thank you. So we do have the opportunity to hear Carol Messenger.
Carolyn, yeah. How much time do we have?
Well, we're Cinderella turns into a pumpkin or whatever at 9 o'clock.
I don't have a time. I don't have a clock. So what time?
It's 8:49.
Oh.
You got time?
All right.
All right.
This is my first time here. I have read a few other places, but this is my first time here reading at PoetryBridge. And was it, sorry, I'm not good with names, the gentleman who was the teacher, was it Mike?
Mike
read?
Hickey, yeah.
And he read the first poem he ever wrote. So I wasn't going to read this tonight, but I thought, oh, I'll drag out the first, what I consider the first poem I ever wrote as an adult. It's called Found Receipt. $8.75. Why didn't you pay cash? $8.75. You'd have gotten change back from a 10. $8.75. You charged it on your credit card. $8.75. You left it for me to pay for. $8.75. They were cheap, and there were lots of them. $8.75 for a box of 50. $8.75, 49 more than you needed. $8.75 because it only took one. $8.75 for a bullet in the brain. $8.75 to kill yourself. Life is expensive, but death is cheap.
Whoa.
So I wasn't going to read that tonight, but poetry actually kind of saved me over the last 4 years. So when I was younger, I thought I didn't know how to write because I had teachers who corrected things in certain ways and got a little stymied. I'm sure there's other people out there that have had that happen. So from that poem, it progressed quite a bit. But anyway, the next one's called Canning Comfort. I stocked the old pine cupboard with rows of mason jars full of plumping cherries from this year's record crop, each one hand-plucked and pitted and steeped in sweet red wine. 5 pounds at a time, I first wash, then pluck, 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 the stems from their belly buttons, fully ripe. Their cords had let go of their mother's arms into the farmer's hands. Then from the pile I pick, squeeze, pit. Each stone hits the bowl with a joyous ping. I stocked the old pine cupboard with rows of mason jars, 41 quarts so far, the result of 90 pounds of pitted fruit and a generous case of wine. Next to them rests a single jar of old-fashioned strawberry jam, the only one left from last year's harvest, back when cooking and canning was simply done to capture and preserve summer sweetness at its peak, before it was a meditation to cope with grief.
an attempt to be present in a rhythmic task, to feel the comfort of the hearth, the reassurance that seasons continue, another following the one that came before. Needing to fill the old pine cupboard with rows of mason jars sends me to the market on the bricked and cobbled street, the one they close each Sunday and fill with farmers' stalls, street musicians and sidewalk poets, where I find peaches, whose scent of blossoms and sweet love reaches my nose before my eyes can notice, the cases filled with layers of their seductive shapes. Like everything else this year, they're early, before I'm ready. And there's no one left to make jam for, no one to enjoy his breakfast each morning, trimmed with jewels of peach, his favorite. So I pass them by and choose 90 more pounds of Bing cherries, enough for a year of restaurant menus, to return to my ashram of copper pots and feel the comfort of a full larder well before the weather turns cold. This is just a little haiku. Anyone who has experienced loss, this will especially make sense. It's called Making Plans. Healing grief looks like stacks of garden magazines flagged with Post-it notes. Let's see, next. This one is called Composure Decomposed. Airbrushed each day in competence, activity, and rectitude, her face was flawless, free from blemishes of failure, insecurity, and sin. At least everyone thought so, and when asked about her skin regime, she only credited eating lots of butter and olive oil, and the luck of good genetics from her mother, who at 75 had looked no more than 60. But then the perfect storm of expectations, loss, and slaughtered dreams beyond what she could bear ripped away her glasses, grayed her hair, and with each squall and tempest, the careful coats of paint then peeled away in several shades of hardship, revealing all she'd lived and covered while extolling optimism. When the winds had once more calmed and she first looked in the mirror, she reached from habit for her brush and powder to fill the cracks and layers now exposed. But when she took in her reflection, she saw a tender beauty there, from the sadness in her eyes and weary sallow of her cheeks to the deepened worry lines along her brow, all a burnished gold patina now, the vulnerability of uncertainty, of living her own truth. Not all grief. Let's see. Let's do this one. I'm a fairly recent West Seattle transplant. Actually, I'm going to read this poem first and show you that. Okay. This one's called Seaside Blackberries. Along a pebbled shore of sand and shells, battered by storms of life's indifference, littered with weathered wood, cast upon the beach by fickle tides, all shades of dreams diminished. These, the skeletal remains of a heart and home picked clean by tragedy and loss, springs a single, wild, fruited vine that defies the lack of soil, spreads its thorny shoots and leaves, and sprouts clusters of tight berries. Not plump with easy juiciness, there's been so little rain this season, but fully ripe, weighted with concentrated sweetness and packed with seeds of possibility. And the reason I wanted to read that first is not to give it away. I wrote that after the third date with the man who's now my husband. And he is the reason I moved to West Seattle. We bought our house a year and a half ago. He was a West Seattle, well, not native, but many, many, many years here. It's been a bit of adjustment, but CMP is making it worthwhile for me, so it's great. He's a musician, and I've been here many nights for his open mic, so it's fun to be able to read on my own stuff. So then, I got to read some. How are we doing for time?
Just got a minute or two.
Okay, so let's do, I'm going to end kind of on a light note then. Okay. Call this a recipe for poetry, because I'm a pastry chef by trade. Custards are cooling, fields of grazing cows and free-run chickens, orange-scented coffee and vanilla bean, the fruit of an orchid that grew from the blood of forbidden lovers. The last batch of ice cream is churning, figs steeped in sherry, the Spanish sun warms the stones laid by Moors in a time of tolerance, with hints of anise and bay. As I roll the pin across the fifth crust of buttery dough to fill fluted pans from France, my fingers itch to grasp instead a pencil, to plant words, not seeds, upon a page, to capture and preserve the thoughts and remembrances that waft to the surface with the steam of rosemary tea. But the oven awaits the cakes, flourless, moist with chocolate and dates, so I reach for whisk instead.
Thank you. Well, thank you all. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Chris, and thank all of you who read at open mic. And I want to thank all the students who, even after Mike left, how would he know that you aren't here and you stuck around? You know, I think that's kind of special. I had this amazing thought, which by the time I walked up here totally escaped me. But I'm going to hold it. I'm going to capture it again. And if you come next time, I'm going to share it with you. Because it's just been a remarkable evening. I just paid attention in a different kind of way. I don't know why I can't remember it, but it's just, oh, well, anyway. I hope to see you all next, we're going to have an amazing group of 3 women poets. And if you're not on the mailing list, the email list, it's a way to stay in touch. And I'll tell you when there's new information on the website. So if you want to come up before you leave, just put your name on that. I'll be sure that you'll get a, yeah, it says email list on it. Just get your name and your email address. Thank you so much for coming.
So is that a story about your childhood? When did this come out? No, you're so good. What service was he in? Navy.
Now, where is your,
So you guys
where did Mary get some I used to have my own thing. For a long time.
For a long, long time.
So where is
I
that way, and I used to. And if you think about the money I spent on those things in my life.
Well, thank you very much. This has been a pleasure.
Same here.
Anyway, so I think that's you know, first thing, in my, whatever, I started with my
I know.